because it's too similar. Let's do Solar now because. Are you, sorry? Are you playing the melody? Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah? Did we do this with the A? Yeah, okay. Sorry? E flat. E flat. One, two, oh, one. should do dolphin dance now then, yeah? Yeah, and alone together. Yeah. One, two, one, two, three.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How about one more time for the band? They will be back. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome to the first ever 67 Sessions, an evening of wine, words and music. My name's Richard Hemming. I'm a Master of Wine, and I'm also the Head of Wine Asia Pacific for 67 Pall Mall, based in Singapore. So tonight brings together everything that 67 does best. We have outstanding wine, we have delicious food, and most importantly, we have a room full of wonderful people. This includes many of the finalists for tomorrow's 67 Pall Mall Global Wine Communicator Awards, which is going to take place in this room tomorrow at midday. And also several members of the 67 Pall Mall team, including Grant, our founder and CEO. But above all, we have the lifeblood of our club, our members and their guests. So thank you all very much for coming. The format for tonight is as follows. We've just enjoyed Act 1, which was on the theme of blend, with a first course accompanied by Laurent Perrier Heritage in Magnum. After a few words for some very special guests, we will move on to Act 2, which will feature two Chablis. I'm going to have to confess at this point that the Brocard is the one that's in Magnum, not the Lucien Lemoine, as it says on your menu. Possibly nobody would have noticed, but I feel like I have to point that out. So two Chablis Premier Cru will be served with our next course. Then around 9 o'clock, we'll have two excellent reds alongside our final course before finishing with some homemade truffles and wrapping up at around 10 p.m. Throughout the evening, we've got accompaniment from our house band, who are a jazz trio from both inside and outside the wine trade. I'm calling them the Diurnal Variations. Nobody else is calling them that. I'm calling them that. And I'm going to let Tom Hewson introduce the band to you later, but I'll just say a few words about him. Tom's our pianist and musical director, and was for 15 years a professional jazz musician with at least 5 albums to his name, I believe. Today, he's a wine writer with a speciality in champagne and sparkling wine. So he is in the unique position of knowing whether wine or jazz pays less. And the Diurnal Variations will be back on stage very soon, but before that, I want to introduce a few guest speakers. So first up, from Champagne, Laurent Perrier, to say a few words about their heritage cuvée. Please join me in welcoming Danny Brennan.
And the winner is... Thank you, Vicky. Good evening, everyone. For those that I haven't met before, my name is Daniel Brennan, and I'm the UK Brand Director at Laurent Perrier in the United Kingdom. And it's my honour to say a few words this evening to introduce the House of Laurent Perrier and the champagne, which hopefully you all now have in front of you, Laurent Perrier Heritage, which, excuse the pun, will hopefully be music to your ears. So Laurent Perrier, founded in 1812, a house that's been defined by its pioneering role in innovation throughout its history. Its innovation is rooted in its savoir-faire, passed down through generations. Internationally recognized This is the newest cuvée from Laurent Perrier, released in 2024, so less than a year old. It is the first brut champagne created by any champagne house made from only reserve wines. It has a blend of Chardonnay, 55%, Pinot Noir, 45%, and is made from 40 cru, of which 50% are Grand Cru. It is aged for a minimum of 4 years. And to give you some context, Laurent Perrier Heritage is served in a number of London's best establishments, such as the Corinthia London, the Savoy Hotel, the Ritz Hotel, Brown's Hotel, to name but a few. And if I may, I'll just conclude with a tasting note from Giovanni Fellito, who's the Ritz London Head of Wine and Beverage, which he wrote this week, this tasting note, as we serve this particular champagne at a, and I have to get this right, at a travel and food press event, not wine, at the Ritz Hotel. For that reason, I would have invited many of you in the room, but I've had to specify it was travel and food. And we did this to launch a special dinner, an Epicurean meal, with 5 different champagnes, with 5 different courses, which will be taking place in the Ritz Hotel for the whole month of November. And this is how he describes the champagne. Laurent Perrier Heritage, with its fine mousse, lively acidity, and nuanced notes of citrus, ripe stone fruit, brioche, and floral honey, provides the perfect balance between freshness, elegance, and maturity. Its freshness cleanses the palate between flavors, whilst its subtle complexity ensures that both delicate and savory canapes, such as tonight, are elevated without being overpowered. Thank you for listening, and do enjoy Acts 2 and 3. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll keep your glasses topped up with Heritage throughout the evening. But now we're going to move on to Act 2. So there are going to be 2 Chablis coming round any moment. You've got 2 of our Zalto Burgundy glasses, white Burgundy glasses in front of you, marked 1 and 2. The Soms will take care of the rest. But now I'm going to ask Alex and Andrew to come up and say a few words. So Alex Hunt, MW, has very kindly sponsored the wines through Berkman Wine Cellars. So the whites and the reds that we're having tonight are coming courtesy of Alex. And then Andrew Jefford, who I hope needs no introduction, will be saying a few words afterwards. So I will pass on to Alex Hunt first. Alex.
All right, thank you so much. Richard, thank you very much for the opportunity to get involved in this event. It's right up my Strasse. I love this. As very much a jazz musician want to be, I am in awe of the band, and just to be able to listen at close quarters and see their talent is enormously inspiring. And I'm desperately hoping the wines are going to, in some way, live up to that brilliance. But it's a great opportunity to be able to talk a little bit about them and to pair wines with jazz, I think, for the first time in my career. I'd like to start with a question to you, if I may, a jazz-related question. Who knows the jazz standard Autumn Leaves? Lots of people know that. Do you know how many versions of this have been recorded and commercially released? My research assistant, otherwise known as the internet, tells me that it's around 1,400 versions of this, since it was written in 1945, have been released. It's been interpreted by, among others, Frank Sinatra, Oscar Peterson, Sarah Vaughan, Ahmed Jamal, Miles Davis, Bill Evans, Grace Jones, and indeed, recently, Iggy Pop. From the same song, the same raw material, we can be taken to very different places, according to the interpretation of the performer. The relationship, therefore, between composition and performance has always interested me, as much in wine as in music. Even if today we tend to see the vineyard rather than the winemaker as the primary source of character in wine, and I think rightly so, the interpretative decisions of the latter have an enormous impact, and that's what I'm hoping to demonstrate with this first flight from Berkman. The designation of single vineyards in particular, in Burgundy, in Piemonte, and beyond, give us the opportunity to remove terroir from the equation, more or less, and focus on that winemaker interpretation. Monopoles, those famed single vineyard, single ownership vineyards, are all very well. I'm not going to turn any of you down next time you want to share a bottle of La Tâche, but by protecting their agricultural IP, they never allow us to hear their song sung by another singer. So for this first pair, I've chosen two Chablis, Montée de Tonnerre Premier Cru, perhaps the greatest of all the Premier Crus in Chablis, touching Blanchot to its northwest, and from the cool 2021 vintage, which I think is going to be quite transparent both to the soil and the winemaker interpretation. So from the Magnum is Julien Brocard, son of Jean-Marc, his biodynamic example, vinified and aged in a 5,000 litre foudre, so a big neutral barrel, and then because he had another 500 litres that had to go somewhere, a 500 litre barrel too, but pretty neutral oak. Bottled after 10 months aging, so before the following vintage. And the result for me is layered and mellifluous, gentle, intricate, the landscape of Chablis painted in the pastel colors of cool West Coast jazz. By contrast, the Lucien Lemoine example slaps like New York bebop. Just a single new 500-litre barrel here, yielding 650 intense, challenging bottles. Aged for 23 months on no less than 20 litres of heavy lees at the bottom of the barrel. There's a lot going on here. Starting with the wood and progressing through to a salty, iodine-rich finish, some sort of unholy marriage between petrol and sea urchin. I love them both. I really hope you do too. And most of all, I hope you enjoy the comparison. And last but not least, I'm sure you will enjoy the peerless eloquence of Mr. Andrew Jefford.
Alex, thank you so much. Hello to you all. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Daniel, for creating this evening. Like so many others over the last 9,000 years, it's one of peaceful respite and shared plenty of music and of wine. 9,000 years ago, the place we call Chablis was covered with thick post-glacial forest. These were the early years of the Holocene climate optimum, somewhat cooler times than ours, minimal human impact, environmental stability. The terroir we cherish on the Montée de Tonnerre was mute, inconceivable. It was nothing, it wasn't. Photosynthesis and soil building, by contrast, were roaring ahead. Gross tonnages of leaf litter, deadwood catacombs, lunging shoots, saplings thrusting through the tangle. As we drink, we're indebted to that ancient sunlight. It still nourishes our beloved monoculture. Much later, the forest was cleared. There were 4 significant Roman villas in Chablis. Perhaps their owners looked across to the sunlit slope to the northeast, across which those trudging through the forest to Tonodurum, to Tonnerre, made their uphill way, their Monte. Wine's first interpretive act is a reading of landscape. We'll plant here, not here. This stony falling land isn't a place for Emma wheat or onions. Vines, by contrast, will love its dry warmth. The trial succeeded. The wine was less sharp. Agriculture, the first culture, is built on attentiveness of this sort. Gradually, all of the places hereabouts where the wine was less sharp were assembled, winnowed by endurance, proved by delight and by profit. And this is how the music of place slowly comes into being. In due course, the community found the perfect instrument with which to play that music of place. We call it Chardonnay. Chablis lies in Chardonnay's upper register, notes to haunt, stony yet aerial, both the slope and the sky above. If you found music you want to play repeatedly, which bears endless re-listening, and if you found an instrument which lends itself to this music better than any other, then you need musicians, interpreters. We now call them winemakers, lending them a creative aura. Much of their work lies in tending vines through a season. Their supervision of a natural process is closer to craftsmanship than art. They perform the music of wine. And wine's second interpretive act falls to these performers, to take the grapes they've grown, press their juice, and let wine happen. That was once the sum of it, a journey across a sea of hazard, fingers firmly crossed. Now, though, we have knowledge, resources, and cunning. Now our winemakers have studied at conservatoire, have fashioned styles for themselves, and are reading not just landscapes, but sights and seasons. Letting wine happen has returned, it's true, as an ideal for some, but most take their interpretive duties very seriously. Grape juice is cacophony, the music of place hidden and concealed. Wine, by contrast, always gives us melody, but you can still play loudly or softly, sweetly or harshly, fast or slow. Alex has given us an introduction to each interpretive style. 2021 wasn't easy, since the region's frost demons returned with force. William Febvre, for example, protected against frost for 30 nights and still lost 75% of the crop. Julien Brocard lost half his harvest for his Premier Cru and Grand Cru vines. The reward was a classicism of style, the memory of cooler times. Nature's repeated antagonism has given Chablis what Brocard has called the culture of seed, herbicide, pesticide, fungicide. He's fought this with organics and biodynamics in a region where they're far from the norm. He speaks of these as, and I quote, an aid to understanding soils, parcels, winds, and what is living. His aim is precision, force, and freshness. In Montée de Tonnerre, for example, which he calls certainly the most complete of the Premier Cru. His wines, as Alex described, are aged in large wooden ovals, since he feels their slow oxidative evolution is, in his words, perfect for revealing the personality of each site. Mounir Salma, of Lucien Lemoine, by contrast, owns no Burgundian vines. He buys fruit, and not just fruit. If a grower has 6 barrels on offer, Mounir might buy 2, but ask for the lees of all 6. He likes firm pressing and hyper-oxidation of the fruit. That's a technique used to reduce phenols and exhaust the oxidative potential of the juice, leaving it afterwards naturally resistant to oxidation. The wines then ferment as slowly as they wish in barrels of Juppy oak and are left with their lees for up to 3 years without racking prior to bottling. His ideal, he told me in 2018, is to ensure, and again I quote, that all the things that nature gave us are still in the wine. The proteins, the vitamins, the yeasts, the bacteria. They're digested. They help your system digest other things. The wines are full, not empty. We start aging with around 8 liters of lees per barrel. By the end, only 3 are left. The other 5 are in your glass. 2 clearly different interpretations, as you see, and 2 clearly contrastive wines. There is, though, wine's third interpretive act to talk about, your interpretation of each wine. And we don't speak enough of this third act. The danger of the score is everywhere, with its flood of familiar analogies and tropes, meaning that the drinker's interpretive acts are increasingly subcontracted to a small clique of professional palates. This is to embed bad faith into our relationships with wine. It may lead to a homogenization of the expressive range of wine, a critical zeitgeist rewards those wine creators who abandon their own investigative journeys, their own interpretive journeys, choosing instead to lock on to that zeitgeist. Is the expressive range of white Burgundy today one of optimum amplitude? Consistent, perhaps? Disciplined, precise and focused, probably? Ample, dappled and free-roaming? Well, maybe not. Only you possess your palate. Only you smell and taste as you do. Only you possess the bank of memories you've assembled during your decades of life. Only you are going to create your own moments of respite and shared plenty with those close to you. Only you will choose the foods you prefer, the glasses you like, the atmosphere and temperatures which please you. Only you can unlock your wallet. The joy of drinking wine is the joy of a free palate, let loose on a vast landscape of nuance and difference. So please, cherish and champion your own interpretive acts and use them to make your way through that landscape. That's the best way to nourish the expressive width that we're celebrating with the two glasses in front of us. Thank you.
And the last note of one of the tunes is together. Right, we'll play and then I'll say something. What are we going to say? We'll play and then I'll talk after. Night and day. Do you want to or you? MC, yeah? Sorry? Yeah. One, two, one, two. Thank you very much. I thought I'd just introduce the band very quickly before we move in, because you may have noticed we have added an extra for the second set. So first of all, in the first set, many of you may well recognize Mr. Nelson Parry. I got to know Nelson. I got to know Nelson through wine, and then accidentally found out that we both actually went to the same music college almost at the same time, studying almost the same thing, which was jazz. So that's a little bit of a key to how this evening started and got put together. So a big hand for Nelson on the guitar. Thank you very much. And a long-time collaborator and wonderful bass player I've known for a long time, Mr. Tom Farmer on the bass. And it's a real joy to have Trish Clues come and join us on the saxophone, on tenor sax, for the set. Now, I did select a number of vaguely wine-related tunes for us to play, but I'm not going to bore you with all my dad joke reasons why they're relevant to wine. I think we're going to play. This one has no real wine relevance at all. It's called Recordame by Joe Henderson. But we did just play Night and Day, and I did notice that Richard did call us the diurnal variation, so I thought that was a nice little hookup there. But we've got a few more. Maybe if I'm feeling brave, I'll unleash my puns on you. But for now, we're going to play Recordame. Need that on. Thanks very much. The next song is called Without a Song. With a song. Yeah, that was it. That was it. Good press up. E flat, yeah? 1, 2, 1, 2. That was long. We've got maybe one more tune, so after practicing Spring, we should probably play Night as a Thousand Eyes. Or should we do play the banner? Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, cool. Okay. I will say something about this one. So I have to say something about this one because this last tune we're going to play in this set is called Spring Can Really Hang You Up the Most. And it's a beautiful ballad. And I thought of this one because at the time we were organizing this gig, I had actually been in Champagne, and they had been in the south wiped out by spring frosts last year. And if you grow vines, spring definitely can hang you up the most, which is not the meaning of this song. Of course, it's a lover for whom spring brings back painful memories, but spring can bring back painful memories for people growing vines as well. So there you go. Thank you so much. This will be the last tune you hear from Trish Clues. So can we give her a big round of applause, please, for coming and joining us? Thank you, Trish. And the trio will be back for more later, but this is Spring Can Really Hang You Up the Most.
Thanks, guys. The Diurnal Variations. And Trish, thank you, Trish. Folks, we're going to move swiftly on to Act 3, the art of the trio. So I'm going to ask our som team to start pouring the two reds, coming out right now, and ask you to invite back to the stage Mr. Alex Hunt.
Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the two Chablis and that they were sufficiently different as they warmed up in the glass. We have two reds now that are not from the same vineyard or even indeed the same country, but have a few things in common. And I'm going to start with another question to you and then two confessions. So the question, I'm less certain of this question than the autumn leaves one, okay? Who has heard the music of Brad Mehldau? Yeah, okay, we've got a couple, fantastic. Three Brad Mehldau fans in the house, plus me. This is awesome. One of, in my view, the towering talents of jazz piano over the last 30 years or so. So I'm a big fan, and when we decided to theme the red wines around three-way blends in honor of our splendid band here, I borrowed the name The Art of the Trio from a series of 5 albums that Brad Mehldau released between 96 and 2001. Check them out, they're ever so good, especially number 3. That's the first confession, I pinched the name. Second confession, which is slightly more serious. Since the theme was originally agreed that we'd be looking at three-way blends with our trio, two things happened more or less simultaneously. I learned that the Priorat that is being poured now was in fact not a three-way blend after all. I had it on great authority that it was, from the winery, and it turned out they made a mistake. It actually contains 4 varieties: Garnacha, Syrah, Carignana, and Cabernet. They got into a bit of a muddle with the product info. But luckily, at just around the same time, our original jazz trio was augmented by Trish on sax, bringing a serendipitous symmetry to this little alteration. So therefore, with this course, we get to enjoy not only a 3-way blend made of 4 varieties, but we've also just heard the world's only 4-person jazz trio. The San Leonardo being served alongside is, I am really, really confident, made of 3 varieties, as it's meant to be: Cabernet, Carmenere, and Merlot, as it is every year. But despite having different blends, these 2 wines, I think, do share a little bit of a story of fresh eyes on old origins. Scala Dei's vineyards in Priorat were first planted in the mid-13th century, a century or so after a monastery was established in these remote hills of Catalonia. Now, you've got to wonder why it took the monks a century to plant vines. They must have been chronically thirsty for the first 4 generations. But they got around to it in the end, and it was, by all accounts, a great success. The trouble is that Scala Dei passed through many hands after Catalonia's dissolution of monasteries, and some hands were more neglectful than others. But new owners revived the vineyards, replanted and started again from the vintage 1974, and that kick-started the modern era of Priorat. Tenuta San Leonardo, a stone's throw away from Lake Garda in Trentino, northern Italy, also has medieval origins, and in fact it can be traced back even further than that. Although the current ownership dates back merely to 1770, a 13th century fresco was found in the chapel on the property in 1982, which coincidentally was the same year they borrowed the great Giacomo Takis, the winemaking genius behind Sassicaia and Tignanello, to establish the definitive Bordeaux blend of northern Italy. Both of these estates, I feel, are offering timeless, elegant, pure styles, as unruffled by the winds of fashion as the jazz trio, or indeed the quartet. So I hope you enjoy them very, very much. Thank you for sharing these wines with me, with Berkman Wine Cellars, with the whole crew here, and I'll hand you on once again to the peerless Andrew Jefford.
Thank you, Alex. Well, if we had Trish playing on her own to us tonight, we would know. From the first husky note, cutting into the primed silence, and on for the duration. Likewise, Tom on piano, Tom on bass, Nelson on guitar. Each instrument has its quiddity, its essence. Some instruments seek friends more urgently than others. We've all relished concerts of solo piano music. Few of us have enjoyed 2 hours of ruminative, roaming double bass. But if we went to that concert, we'd know. Solo and ensemble playing are very easy to differentiate. Now let me ask you a question. Imagine I'm going to hand you a beautiful glass of red wine, not one of the ones we've got in front of us, something we have no idea about. Those of you who think you could say accurately 100% of the time whether it's made from a blend of varieties or a single variety, could you raise a hand? Don't see many hands going up. Okay, 50% of the time, 50% of the time. Ah, yes, 1 or 2 tentative hands. 25% of the time, a quarter of the time, a few more hands. 10%? Come on, go for it. Okay, I'll stop there. I might have ventured 10% myself, but probably not more than that. And yet, why do blends exist? Why aren't all wines single variety wines? Especially since variety is the wine world's main marketing mechanism. We know varieties. We recognize varieties. Blends, by contrast, are a mystery. Create a blend, and you throw away a cognitive key. You then need to explain your wine, make a case, spin a yarn. A long time ago, there was a simple practical reason for blends. In some seasons, some grape varieties crashed and failed. Grow one variety, and you were shafted. Grow 3, 5, or 7, you had insurance. The phenomenon lingers a little, but few create blends to avoid losses nowadays. There tend to be two blending scenarios, in origin the same. In Europe, you might be urged or instructed to make a blend by local traditions. Tradition, remember Émile Peynaud's words, is an experiment that succeeded. Elsewhere, you'll find yourself confronted by your new wines in the darkness and the cold of winter. They'll be there in dripping glasses in front of you, lit by a single cellar bulb. The truth, your annual income. There may well be a primed silence into which aromas and tastes fall, not musical notes. You try, you search, you compare, you fret, you play, you mix. And after all of that, over hours or days, comes a blend. It's better. You compare again. It's best. They're more common than we think, since most legislations allow between 10 and 25% of other varieties to appear on varietally labeled wines. And in that sense, we might have risked putting our hands up a little earlier. Most wines are probably blends, though we'll never know. There are still some secrets in wine. And of all the possible blends, why a trio? Why not a duet, an octet, a big band, a hallelujah chorus, a Mahler resurrection? Why did the Guerreri-Gonzago family choose Carmenere and Merlot to blend with their Cabernet? Why do the winemakers and owners of Cellars Scala Dei choose Carignana and Cabernet Sauvignon to blend with their Garnacha? These are questions with multiple answers, not all of them aesthetic. Alex has provided some background, as well as filling us in on the last-minute guest appearance of Syrah, as well as Cabernet Sauvignon in our second blend. We could trade percentages, speculate on options, lose ourselves in a swoon of geekiness at this point, but this isn't a two-hour seminar, so we're not going to go that way. Let me just note for now that many classic blends are indeed trios. Champagnes is famous. Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Meunier. In Bordeaux, either Cabernet or Merlot takes the lead, complemented by the other, and the minor third, usually a contrastive Cabernet, Franc or Sauvignon. Much of southern France, as well as warmer sites in Australia and elsewhere, see sleek, showy Syrah step out with plump, affable Grenache and the usefully interrogative Mourvèdre. These are all routes to completeness. By contrast, wines based on one variety alone have voice. We hear that voice, tender and vulnerable, off stage, in the gallery, walking out from the wings, taking center stage, eventually filling the auditorium. These are often the wines about which we can use words like lyrical and aerial. They soar as the human voice can soar, soprano Riesling, mezzo Burgundy of both hues, alto Syrah from Hermitage or Cornas, tenor Barbaresco, baritone Barolo. There are duets in the wine world too. These are blends of exchange, of riposte. Sometimes a variety is so characterful as to invite remedy. The classic example is Bordeaux's way with spiky, leafy Sauvignon Blanc, which is to calm it with softer, fuller, and more pliant Semillon. For Bordeaux's voluptuous sweet wines, the relationship is the same, the proportions reversed. One of the great non-European duets brings Cabernet and Syrah or Shiraz together. Two alpha males at loggerheads, you might think. But no, not at all. Less still with time. With time, the duet becomes a marriage. In Priorat itself, something different is afoot. As so often in today's Spain, the climatic limits are being tested every summer. Perhaps one side of the exchange has a little more resource, a little more latitude in the fierce heat than the other. We may hear more from Cariñena and less from Garnacha in the future. But with the trio, we welcome the contribution of a third. No more voice, but voices. No more riposte, but conversation, argument, the interwoven threads of mutual support and communal endeavor. One variety proposes, another replies, a third qualifies or interjects, and each brings something to the table. And the idea, the same idea that takes shape in the darkness of that winter cellar, is of course that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. The trio is not an affectation. It's the best that the producer can do. It's worth noting that few wine trios see three varieties come together in equal proportions. San Leonardo is built on the Bordeaux ideal, refracted through the Bulgari lens, and then upwards towards the cold mountains. So Cabernet Sauvignon assumes the structural role. It's Cabernet with a distinctive subalpine freshness. The potential severity of its 60% is fleshed out with two more tender varieties. They soften, they mellow. In the slaty cauldron of Priorat, Garnacha still takes the lead in this wine and for this cellar, gathering into itself the solar force of the place. Here, though, its own 47% is built out and counterbalanced with varieties of freshness and sinew. The art of the trio, its internal coherence, seems to rest on a principal actor and two supporting or interrogative roles, a proposition and two replies. I'll conclude by returning to my finishing point of a little earlier this evening. How do we interpret these wines, this trio, this quartet, and the art of the trio more generally? Should we dissect? Should we anatomize? Well, we might, I suppose. But it's much harder for wine than it is for music. The molecules have swum together. The blend has aged and settled, and what was once three things has become one. There are now no discursive singularities, as in a jazz or chamber trio, just harmonic synthesis. We still have work to do, though, interpretive work. We owe those who've brought these parts together the innocence of our appreciation and the gift of our imagination to take us to those places, that subalpine valley, that secret Catalan fastness, where these wines came into being and of which they're essential synopsis. And then to roam freely there. Thank you.
guys, we'll do Days of Wine and Roses first, then we'll do a flower. Then we'll do a flower. Yeah. Testing. Right. Hello. Yes. Well, and then there were three. We're going to play our last set now. And I've, of course, had to pick the only jazz standard that every jazz musician can name that has the word wine in the title, which is The Days of Wine and Roses, or Rosés, if you're feeling summary, not anymore. Following that, we're going to play something which, at a stretch, it's a beautiful Billy Strayhorn tune called A Flower is a Lovesome Thing. There you go, a plant-related tune, perhaps, but yeah, that's about as far as it goes. But Days of Wine and Roses to start off. Oh, do you want a tune? Give me 1 second. That was Nelson's wonderful Call That Tune. We're going to carry on, I think, and play a beautiful tune, one of my favorites. It's called Skylark by Hoagy Carmichael. Yeah. We did this sort of a little bit straightish. Dolphin Street? Green Dolphin Street? Yeah? E flat. E flat. Tune? Maybe. Let's see. Should we save that? Okay. Okay, Green Dolphin Street. E flat. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Start in a moment and then Sandu to finish. Start in moments, then Sandu. Okay. Let's play it and I'll announce the last one. I think we've got time for two last tunes. Well, let's do a very quick what a difference a day makes. And then we'll do what a difference a day makes. Okay. Okay, we're down to our last two tunes. We're going to play a tune with a very obvious harvest meaning, which is what a difference a day makes to phenolic maturity. I mean, what a difference a day makes, full stop. Yes, what a difference a day makes. Okay, we've come to our very last tune. I will say a huge thank you once more to Trish for coming and joining us earlier. I think she may have left us, but or she may be still on the San Leonardo. I think she's left us. And a massive thank you to Nelson Parry for joining us on the guitar. It's been wonderful. It's been a great meeting of worlds for me. I've really enjoyed it. And a huge thanks to Tom Farmer, incredible bass player. And a massive thanks to Richard Hemming and to 67 for putting together this brilliant event. I've had a tremendous amount of fun. Thank you. We're going to play our very last tune, which is a blues called Sandu by Clifford Brown. That's right, yes. Thank you very much. Nelson Parry, Tom Farmer, and Tom Hewson, thanks so much for having us. Do continue to enjoy your wine and hopefully see you again soon. Thanks so much. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Alex as well, who actually did get on the piano earlier before and is quite a wonderful pianist. Yeah. I'm not sure he's had enough. Yeah, no, that wasn't a suggestion, Alex, don't worry. It's okay. I think Richard is strolling to the stage to rescue me, but we'll see you very, very soon. We'll be hanging around enjoying some pre-act, I believe. But thank you, Richard. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you to the Diurnal Variations, whether they like it or not. Folks, that's the end of the proceedings for tonight, but please feel free to drain your glasses and stick around for a while. I will see many of you tomorrow for the awards ceremony, the 67 Pall Mall Global Wine Communicator Awards. But until then, at midday tomorrow, thank you very much and good night. Thank you.